All set. Okay, we are rolling. I'm going to go ahead and drop out here, and Kevin, take us away.
Thank you very much, Derek, and thanks to everyone for joining us this afternoon. My name is Kevin Olson. I'm Manager of Business Development for ProTechnics here in Canada, and I want to welcome everyone to what is actually our fifth ProTechTalks, but our very first Canadian-specific ProTechTalks. So we're very happy to be launching this in Canada as well. The ProTechTalks that we've done in the US were very well received. People really seem to enjoy this format. So today's format is really just going to be kind of informal, very conversational. And we've got some, we consider industry leaders, some great panelists that I'm going to be introducing here in a moment. But before we do that, I would like to introduce everyone and have Don Dumas say a couple of words. Don is our new president at ProTechnics. Started with Core Lab many years ago, but took over as the president of ProTechnics just a couple of months ago. And I really wanted Don to have an opportunity from Houston to address all of our clients and customers and colleagues here in Canada, and just really kind of close the gap a little bit, so that all of you who are on the call know that, although Houston might seem really far away, we are actually a very close-knit team. So with that said, maybe I'll ask Don to say a few words.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kevin. Thrilled to be here, and I'm glad we have so many people participating in our inaugural Canadian ProTech Talk. As Kevin said, this is our fifth one. And Kevin, I have to say you're wrong. This is my 10th week at ProTechnics, so I'm officially a long time kind of guy now. So, but just real briefly, I worked at ProTechnics many years ago and have been at Core Lab 20 years, but just 10 weeks ago came back to ProTechnics, and I'm thrilled to be here. We've got a great team, and you'll be able to see that through some of the discussions we're having. We've got a fantastic panel amassed here. Being our fifth talk, they've been extremely successful. I want to thank each one of you panelists for joining us for this, granting us some of your time, which I know is important and I know is precious. We're all very busy during this time, but want to just thank everyone for being on the call today, each and every one of you. I hope as we start this call that everyone is safe and happy and healthy, and all of your colleagues and families and loved ones are staying safe and staying happy and healthy in this unbelievably unprecedented time, not only in our industry, but in our world. It's just been absolutely breathtaking to see what has happened around the globe, and obviously what has happened to our industry over the last 3 months. And one of the silver linings out of this huge jolt to our industry is that we've learned to do some things differently. We've learned to do some things better. One of the things that we've learned how to do pretty darn well, and I know myself included, is what we're getting ready to start doing right here. These Zoom meetings, team meetings, whatever software you prefer. We found out that we can do some pretty good things on this stuff. It's not as good as in person, not in this old guy's opinion, but we've gotten to the point where we can do some pretty good stuff. And I know in the past talks that we've had, they've been very well received, and we've been fortunate enough to create a stage, if you will, where industry experts such as yourselves on the panel today are able to freely pass along some of their vast experience and knowledge. We can get very specific about some topics in the industry, whether it be more openly about completion optimization. We've had some really great talks about cost efficiencies, well shut-in practices, pro and con. How do you do it? What's the best way to do it? What are your candidates you choose for shut-in? At the time, we've also had some great discussions about well spacing and just basically in-field efficiency best practices, fracture-driven interactions. All of these type of technical topics have been involved in the past ProTech Talks that we've done. And we've had some absolutely fantastic conversations going back and forth. specifically to the technical merits of more than one or two different viewpoints on it. So it's just been a fantastic forum for interaction of colleagues in the industry, technical experts in the industry. And it's been one of those, as I said earlier, one of those silver linings that's come out of all of this. And that we have so many people that have been very, very gracious and giving of their time to join these talks. And I speak for myself and as a representative of ProTechnics and core laboratories as a whole, we greatly, greatly appreciate that. So once again, fantastic forum here. Great job to all you folks at ProTechnics for pulling all this together. It's probably about all I have to say. So I'll get out of the way, Kevin, and I'll let you proceed with the festivities, sir.
Thank you very much, Don.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us. I know you can't stay for the whole event, so
we'll hang around as long as I possibly can.
No problem.
I'm going to get a full report, so make sure you stay on your game.
Sounds good. I'm on it, man. I think Derek had mentioned he's gonna. We'll put you back on the attendee side of the panel.
He's going to zap me.
And yeah, exactly. You're gonna get there you go. Bye. Okay. So thank you again, everyone. And as Don said, thank you all the panelists. And on that note, I'd like to introduce our panelists. I'm going to introduce them in the order that they accepted the invitation to join us. So I'm going to be starting with Audrey Rasmussen. Audrey is currently the engineering manager for the Unconventional Center of Excellence at Petronas Energy Canada Limited, where Audrey leads a team of specialists to drive technological excellence across unconventional business at Petronas. Audrey has spent most of her career in subsurface engineering, focusing on multiple types of unconventional systems such as coal bed methane, tight gas, shale, and now focuses on the development and optimization of such reservoirs worldwide. Audrey graduated from the University of Calgary with a Bachelor's of Engineering in 2006 and has spent time with BP, Apache, and Paramount prior to joining the Petronas team in 2018. Thank you for joining us, Audrey.
Hi, happy to be here.
Okay, next is my friend Raymond Sully. So Raymond is currently occupies the position of President and Chief Operating Officer for Kickinghorse Oil and Gas, a Montney-focused producer in the Kakwa area of Alberta. In the past, Ray has occupied positions of Chief Operating Officer at Kickinghorse Energy and Contact Exploration, as well as Senior Business Development and Operations Engineering roles at Seven Generations Energy Limited, Alta Gas, and Samson Exploration. He received an undergraduate degree from the University of Alberta and is a professional engineer with the Association of Professional Engineers and Geoscientists of Alberta. Great to have you, Ray. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Kevin.
Next will be Phil Stemler. Phil started in the oil industry in 1977, and it says here that he actually invented hydraulic fracturing.
Oh, yeah. Smack coming. No, but Buddy and I know the guy that might have.
He didn't invent it, but he was in the room when it happened. Yeah. Phil got his degree from the University of Alberta in petroleum engineering. He joined Petro-Canada in the mid-1980s as a production engineer, which actually included completions engineering, operations engineering, and production engineering all in one. Phil has a strong passion for hydraulic fracturing and became Petro-Canada's technology leader. And for US folks who might not know, Petro-Canada that we're referring to doesn't exist anymore and was folded into some time ago into Suncor, where Phil is currently working. So in 2009, he became the principal production engineer for the exploration and production unit of Suncor, supported operations in Syria, Libya, Norway, and UK. The discovery of sour gas, or H2S, in Terra Nova, which is Suncor's offshore platform, Phil took control of that program, of their souring program, and developed several reservoir surveillance optimization programs in that area. At that same time, he tried to improve reservoir flow units and Phil, apologize, guys. Believes he is best at pumping sand and water off surface at high rate pressure, and his underlying philosophy: the only thing I know for sure about the work I do is that it is wrong to some degree, and working with others makes it less wrong. Okay, and lastly, Alberto with ProTechnics. So Alberto earned an electrical engineering degree in Venezuela in 2000. Later that year, he started his career with Schlumberger as a field engineer. After working in oil fields in West Venezuela and Gulf of Mexico, he moved to Calgary in 2005 to start servicing EMPs and began his career as a senior completions engineer at Encana, which is now Ovintiv, between 2010 and 2015. He dedicated much of his time to many volunteer organizations, SPE mentorship programs, technical program committees at CSER, and in his current role of regional engineering advisor at ProTechnics, Alberto was a key contributor for the global technology team, which is consulted for non-routine completion and reservoir diagnostics in Canada and the US. So, thank you everyone for joining us. I'm very glad to have you guys all here. And so we're going to start asking questions, and it's going to be very conversational. Some of them might be directed towards you personally. Some of them I might open up for the general group discussion. The other thing that we're going to do throughout this event that's kind of interesting is we're going to start enacting some polling questions. And those will go out to the entire group, all of the participants right now, and may become a launch pad for some conversation as well. So the first question I'm going to ask, and it's kind of a traditional question. Every ProTechTalks that we've had so far, we ask, this is the first question we ask every time. And I know it's kind of a mundane question perhaps, and could be answered in many different ways, but it's usually a great place to start. And that question is, what do you guys feel are the greatest challenges and opportunities we face for the remainder of 2020? So if I were to ask Ray, what would you say? Greatest challenges and greatest opportunities for the remainder of 2020?
I think one of the greatest opportunities that most companies up here, most producing companies have had is a slowdown in operations. And that's really allowed us to focus on data analysis, looking at not only the data that we've collected on previous wells, but also a lot of the offset competitor data that's coming off confidential. So I know that's the opportunity that we've been taking during this time. Probably the biggest challenge that I think unconventional oil and gas has had for quite a while and continues to have, and even more so now with the depressed commodity prices, is just a return to profitability. And I think it's no secret that profitability in oil and gas producing companies has deteriorated with much more expensive going longer laterals on a full cycle basis, the higher land costs. So I think that's the challenge, but it's also the opportunity to return that to profitability.
I think that's a great answer. That's a great start. Phil, any thoughts? You want to chime in on that? Greatest opportunities, greatest challenges for the rest of the year?
Well, certainly we'll take the challenges, and we've all got it. Stretching CapEx. How do we get the maximum for the minimum? That will be our creativity to the end of the year. Opportunities is preserving that CapEx. How do we find ways to invest once in the big structure? And once you've got the big structure, how do you watch it, tend it, keep it? No difference than how we maintain our own personal vehicles. How do we change our attitude about failure? Make sure that failure isn't acceptable. We're using the data, as Ray points out, to make better choices about the right material, the right maintenance program to preserve it. So that's the great opportunity the data time allows us.
Okay. Audrey, any thoughts? Greatest opportunities, greatest challenges for 2020? The remainder of 2020?
Yeah, I think 2020 has not been short on challenges. So I think everybody knows, some of the challenges we face. I think something that we face in the energy industry in Canada anyways is pricing. It's depressed right now, but it's been up and down and depressed for several years. So I think something that continues to be a challenge in our industry. We need to, make sure we are making the smartest investment choices that we can. that we optimize our capital efficiency. I think in terms of opportunities, you know, a lot of people already said, and I think Raymond hit it on the head there, is really innovation is one of those opportunities. I think innovation really comes out in a part of this environment where prices are low and where activity is a bit slowed. So, you know, upon challenges, people show their resiliency. And I think there's been a lot of innovation in terms of surveillance, in terms of learning, and in terms of ability to kind of optimize our operations and reduce that break-even price.
Great answers. Alberto, any thoughts?
Yeah, you know, we've done this a number of times, right? And as you said, it's a question we always ask, right? And it's always hard to make a difference between the opportunity and the challenge very often. But upon giving it a thought, I think a lot has to do with, you know, there's no shortage of data. Any E&P, any operator, Canada or US, you call it, we're all awash with data. So it's about the challenge would be about how to better mine that data to extract value from it, right? And once you do that, then what is it that you can do to throw some hypotheses that upon new diagnostics you can build from it, right? Rather than try to next path, let's try to find out this or that. Well, what if you build from something that you've already got just by throwing, you know, an analysis and then try to validate with that new data? I think that'd be a big opportunity for operators to tap on that value that's there.
Okay, that's great. So a bit of a follow-up question here that I'll throw out, and whoever wants to kind of weigh in on this first would be fine. So what is the role of technology and innovation in a low margin, restricted cash flow environment? Is there room in AFEs for new or science or innovation or well surveillance?
Yeah, I'll jump on that one.
Sure.
I think if there's not room for innovation in science or you know, new technology, without that there's no improvement. And I think the key to surviving is actually to be incorporating those new technologies, innovations, ideas. The one thing I would say in these lower commodity cycles that it seems like Audrey points out that we've been in for at least 5 years here in Canada, you know, I think our company will be focusing more on taking baby steps. So, you know, we're not looking at, hey, we're drilling 2 mile long laterals, maybe we should go to 4. You know, maybe it's 2 miles, let's go to 2.2 miles. Like it's those little increments where again, you can learn from, you can extrapolate to where you can get to, but I don't think now's the time for major expenses in the AFEs for that, but definitely we need to continue to have that, and without that, I think that would be the demise of us all.
Okay.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think, you know, there's always space in AFEs for, you know, for technology and things like that, but it has to have an attributed value. It has to be a line of sight to how it's going to make our program better. It's going to make our, you know, situation more economic. And so I do think we're coming into, you know, being smart about the technologies that we're using, and sometimes simpler is actually better. And so, like you said, you know, not doing these huge steps and trying something that, you know, has a high failure rate, potentially using certain technologies to help us learn along the way and continue to optimize. So it allows us the ability to make those steps towards, you know, higher capital efficiency and economics.
Okay.
Yes. So I'll add on to that. In this low price environment, we've got a few jobs with a few people doing a few things. Aggregately, we all need to stand together in some way, shape, or form and just share. We've got to, you know, pick the things that aren't competitive drivers that differentiate each of us and say, look, we got to find out more. So if you're not differentiating yourself on something you're trying, maybe find a way to test 5 variables in 5 wells by 3 different operators, and thereby all of us learning at a slightly better pace with slightly better capital efficiency on the value of that information. cooperation is the only way we're going to go here, because the big fun and game times of unlimited CapEx are gone. This is, now we got to really get in there and get going. So partnership is the next step for me. Steal shamelessly from friends and others.
And share shamelessly as well, right?
Oh, no.
Well, I
Of
know, Ray,
course.
I know you agree with that. That was something that you and I talked about the other day, that operators, we have a very unique, very precious resource here in Canada. And we are compelled as an industry, considering some of the headwinds that we're facing, to work together as an industry to maximize its potential.
Well, and if I just would add a thought there, one of the merits of collaboration, as Phil mentioned, is that it shares that burden of the cost, right? And we've seen talking of clients that they talk to each other, obviously, right? And obviously some of that gain knowledge gets shared and is used as a guideline for the next design, either for diagnostic or the next design in their well paths. And it's great. It's great to see it. It's definitely a way to move forward and save on some of those costs.
So a question that just came in online from Buddy Woodruff actually put this one through, and I think it's a really good follow-up question. So if innovation is one of the opportunities that we have here, how do you guys in your organizations, how do you encourage innovation, or how is innovation encouraged in your respective organizations and in your cultures? Any thoughts?
I
think Audrey, you want to jump on that one?
I'll start. That's a hard question. I mean, we've had a lot of those conversations within our organization in terms of, how do you make people innovate? You can't force somebody to innovate, and I think we've stood by allowing people space to think, allowing people the space to provide ideas and opportunities and not shut people down in terms of being able to explore some of the things that you're thinking. Because without exploring it, you can look at, say you have 10 ideas, well, probably only 1 or 2 of them are going to work, but without that space, you have no idea what would work. And I think, just really allowing people to be able to come out of their comfort zone and listen to sort of what they have to say, I think has worked fairly well in our organization. We also have different teams. We've got certain teams that work on executing the program and being very focused in executing the program. And then we have other people that are focused more on long-term optimization. And that's worked too, to sort of help relieve some of that pressure on some people who, may not have time to sit around and think about optimization.
Bill, I saw you nodding
Yeah.
there. Any thoughts?
So building on that from Audrey, how do you encourage it? Well, one of the ways we've done it is by allowing access to the technology centers. So the One Petro, the ebooks, the journals, the more you have those tools readily available, the more you encourage their use. And when your folks are coming forward with ideas and they're sharing where they got them and how they got them, you start to generate that rhythm and passion within the organization that research is a good thing and it's supported, the time to get there. So the more tools, I go back to when I started, if in order to get an SPE paper, it took an AFE. But now all you have to do is sign on to your One Petro account at Suncor, hit I will have an idea and learn quickly. So a learning organization, a philosophy of a learning organization with tools that are available to the folks, I think that encourages innovation as well.
Now, Ray, I'm going to ask, Kickinghorse, respectively, is a much smaller organization than Petronas or Suncor. So in a smaller organization like yours, Ray, if I may say so, how do you still encourage a culture of innovation and technology and, moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's similar to what Audrey and Phil both said with respect to just sort of that open open environment, being able to, you know, encourage people to share their ideas. And also, I think a big part is also being able to disagree. A lot of the innovation that we see actually ends up happening, you know, little changes from the field are reflected are caught and reflected all the way up, and, you know, debated as a team, and, you know, the appropriate people take those offline and hopefully can incorporate some changes. But yeah, from I guess instead of having sort of a specific team designated to it, I would say we sort of all feel part of that team, because that is the whole company. We're about 10,000 barrels a day, for those who don't know.
Okay. Alberto, any thoughts on fostering a culture of innovation?
Well, I'd say from the perspective of service companies, right? You listen. One way is to listen, because the ideas for what's the next need, what's the next solution that's needed for efficiency, for more value, right? It's either going to come directly from your clients, from your partners, right? Or when, like it's our case in our global technology team, when we're discussing, you know, a data set from a different field, then we think about how that applies to Canada, for example, and so on. So by listening, I think you know that primes that thought, and ideas just flow. When you apply that to the environment of an operator, if you are completions, well, you know, listen to what the reservoir specialist has to say about it, or the production specialist has to say about it, right? Because you may find yourself in the middle of building that bridge between what, you know, the idea from the driller to the idea of the production. So yeah, listen.
Okay. Well, that's great. So what, other than, you know, reviewing and going back through old data sets and trying to, you know, pull, you know, ideas and thoughts and innovations from old, you know, data sets that you guys may have had, how else have you tried to optimize efficiency during this downtime? What, you know, if anything, have you guys really focused on your particular companies during this downtime to kind of maximize our ability to move forward once we come through the other side? Phil, I'll ask you to start with that one.
Yeah, just thinking about what that one means for us. I think, again, it's the historical data and the historical methods of interpreting the data are what we're evolving within. We look at very specific small data sets. You know, it's the, you know, rate, pressure, temperatures. So what else is hiding in there in those data loggers? I mean, we've got data loggers that are logging tens of thousands of variables every second. What else is in there? Bringing in the data scientists to start peeling the data back, you know, plot everything against everything and see what correlates. You know, is there a missing piece to your puzzle hiding in there in one simple correlation? So that's what we've been doing a little bit more of, very strong on sharing data and the data science side right now.
Great. Ray, what have you guys been doing in this downtime?
Yeah, I think probably, again, simpler to do some of this stuff at Kickinghorse than maybe at Suncor. But, you know, it's just back to the specific challenges of the individuals that are involved in each operation. And a big part of our focus has been on cost reduction, you know, and with the reduced cash flow and you know, a slight reduction in production. You know, there's a lot of fixed costs that now need to get spread over a reduced amount of barrels produced. So it's a lot of cost reduction focus for us right now.
Okay. Audrey, any thoughts?
I think, you know, one thing that's kind of across the board in a challenging environment, especially a price challenge, is just having that diversity in basically different commodities. So understanding where you are in the liquids window, understanding, you know, being able to kind of refocus on potential maybe leaner gas areas where condensate was where you were focusing before. So we have, we continue to drill, we continue to execute our program for 2020. However, we always look back and just make sure that we are focusing on the right areas for this particular environment, the current environment that we're in. And so we've had that opportunity to kind of sit back and review some of the projects that potentially weren't economic in a different environment, now actually do stand out as a little bit better. So we've kind of gone back and evaluated some of those projects. And I definitely agree with Phil in terms of data. We try to do quite a bit of data science and interpreting of, some of those data sets that we hadn't looked at before. But I do think one of the key things in our organization in the last couple of years has been data availability. So making that data available to the people who are interested in looking at it. So making it widely available. It's not hidden, in a corner in, somebody's drive. You can go onto a platform, you can look at all the data, the competitor data as well as our own, and being able to amalgamate those data sets. And that's something that, we've been really focusing on this year. I think we've made a bit of a step change in that front.
Yeah, so on that, Audrey, what we've been trying to encourage is data moves freely. Nobody owns it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
totally makes sense.
Yep.
Alberto, any thoughts on that?
Well, when it comes to the operational efficiencies, we've been definitely mindful that our clients are looking for those efficiencies and cost reductions, and that's why in the last few weeks, ProTechnics has launched the new self-service flow assurance, for example, right? Where let's say the main objective being flow assurance from a number of stages that the client would choose, right? And at a very reduced cost, right? Now, obviously, the fact that there's no ProTechnics technician on lease, then for the analysis, that would bring some limitations. However, we're trying to compensate those limitations by means of providing some metrics that benchmark those results of the self-service, right? And at the same time, we're going to be providing, it's from ProTechnics, you have basically the biggest database for diagnostics of completions and reservoirs. So definitely, on one side, you are eliminating a cost, right, which will have an impact on the data, but at the same time, we're compensating on that limitation of the data by providing, some benchmarking, for example, because your clients definitely, looking for those operational efficiencies, and now there's an alternative.
Yeah, that's right. We want to make it easier, just as Audrey and Phil were saying, free flowing data. We want to make it as easy as possible for people to access our data. Well, that's great. Well, Derek has just let me know it's time for our first poll. Derek, are you ready to launch that? Okay. So question number 1, the greatest gains from innovation will be realized mostly in efficient drilling and completion practices, optimized production operation practices, better reservoir characterization, better use of collaboration in digital platforms, and disruptive technologies in either of these categories. And all the panelists are welcome to vote as well.
Yeah, Kevin, I can leave this up for a little bit and let everyone, I can see kind of progress. So once we get a good amount of response, then I can put the answers up.
Okay.
So up to you if you want to wait on it, or if you want to go on to your next question. Then once you're done, we can circle back around and I can put the answers up, whatever you want to do.
Sure, I'll ask another question and we'll pop the poll up. So Ray and Audrey, have your companies been doing any well shut-ins? Are they still shut in? Are you reopening those wells? And if so, are you guys doing any recording of data for shut-in wells? And if so, how do you plan to apply that shut-in well data?
I'll just go first, Audrey, because ours is pretty simple. No, we don't have anything shut in. We contemplated shutting in, when things were spiking towards the negative and briefly there, but everything's profitable to continue operating at the current commodity prices. So there's my simple answer.
Cut and dry. All right, that's easy. Audrey?
I can't speak exactly whether we've shut anything in this environment. However, I know that, we're very production focused. And so I don't believe that we've shut anything material in at this point. We do have capacity, we've got several plants that we operate to. So there's always opportunity to do, some wells choked back or shut in. And we do some, we're always looking for kind of opportunities to learn. So if we were to do something like that, we, have lots of conversations about whether or not we're gonna, put some gauges on there and monitor some shut-ins and things like that. But I can't really speak to whether we've done that recently. But I don't believe that there's been a major change since this environment. It's always something that people think about in different price environments and whether you need to do that. But I don't believe it's been majorly done, but I also am not 100% sure.
Okay. Phil, I apologize. I was thinking about in the offshore world, I doubted that you were shutting in wells offshore, but how, Suncor, I mean, just in general, has Suncor been shutting in wells, and if so, are you monitoring those wells for any data? And how do you plan to apply that data?
Yeah, certainly on our side, on the E&P side, everything that can be on is on. On the heavy oil and mine side, I know that there's been some slowdown of some startup of facilities, but by and large, everything is running, as far as I know, the way it should be. So it's a question I asked Mark Little many years ago, and the answer was, would we shut in price environments? And he had a one-word answer: no. So
all right. Well, it seems like kind of a unanimous consensus here, and I know for a period of time, I mean, that was in fact one of the ProTechTalks that we've done recently was about shut-in well practices, right? And that for like 1 month, that was the strategy, and thankfully, things changed and kind of turned around quickly. So Derek, yeah, let's post the poll results and see. All right, so it's kind of evenly spread. So the greatest gains from innovation will be realized mostly by, it looks like kind of a tie for first place, efficient drilling and completion practices, and better use of collaboration in digital platforms were the two winners there. So Ray, any thoughts on the poll, on the question itself and the answers?
Yeah, I put in drilling completion practices, but I think they can quite largely be tied in with better reservoir characterization and the digital platform. So I think there's quite a bit of overlap in some of those, but ultimately I think each unconventional play needs to extract most profitability, best, what's the best recovery factor that you're targeting, what's the most efficient use of capital to get that at a certain point, it's point of diminishing returns. So to me, I put the completion cost more than probably even the drilling, or the completion practices more than the drilling. But I don't think that can be without the better reservoir characterization in the first place.
Yeah, they're really tied together, aren't they?
Really tied together, yeah.
Yeah. Audrey, which one did you vote for?
I struggled. I think, I echo that comment. A lot of it is tied together, and I think it kind of, they all kind of bring one another, sort of the importance up on one another. So I was thinking about choosing better reservoir characterization, because I always like that. But I do think, when I look at the greatest gains, I do think I chose the collaboration on digital platforms, just because I do think that there is a lot of gains that we can see as an industry right now to get that better collaboration in those digital platforms and be able, like I said before, be able to see the data, be able to analyze the data, and be able to sort of integrate all the disciplines together. I think there's some huge gains we can make in that. And, it's not necessarily reinventing the wheel. It's like let's look at the wheel slightly differently, and could we use it for something else? So I think that they all are very important, and there's going to be gains in all of them, but that's one I chose.
Okay. Good answer. Phil, what were you thinking on this one?
Oh, right now it's data collaboration. It's, looking at these hundreds of data sets, and preventing each of us from reinventing the wheel, as Audrey points out, but also looking at other people's wheels, because you'll be surprised at how you think you've got the most novel way to look at the data, and somebody else pulls it up and you go, huh, didn't think about that. So it's learning from others. Just a point of view can have such a great amount of value. And so it's the data collaboration for me.
Awesome. Alberto, any thoughts?
Yeah, well, I voted for reservoir characterization myself, from the point of view that I'm of the idea that these are times not to think about IP of the wells, but more, okay, here's where we are, this is what we've got, let's try to make the most of it, right? And I see reservoir characterization as a key piece, and that's probably why everybody else here in the panel also somehow commented on it, right? Because from that point on, you can definitely draw lines towards efficiency or optimization and all of that. I think if there were to be an all of the above answer, that would probably have, that would have been a 100%.
No, that's too easy. That's too easy.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's great. That's great, Derek. And you know what? I know, Derek, we've got like 6 of these poll questions to get through. So why don't we get another one loaded up and ready to go? But I'm going to start down a little bit different of a track now. This is a Canadian ProTechTalks. So we've got some questions that are Canadian specific. They're very, very polite questions, you'll note, full of apologies and so on. So anyway, what would you folks say is a feature of the Canadian energy industry that makes us strong and resilient through these difficult times? And I'll ask Phil maybe to start with that one. So we're asking again, what would you say is a feature of the Canadian energy industry that makes us strong and resilient through these difficult times?
Makes us strong. I think it's the sense of data makes us strong, the way we utilize data, the fact that it's not always a rush to get to first oil, to biggest initial production. It's about getting there timely with a right level of investment, with the right level of risk, and good consideration of our stakeholders beyond just the 4 walls of your company. It's a connected and involved industry. It does pay great respect to what we're actually here to do in Canada, which is produce the oil and gas, and on behalf of the citizens of the provinces we're in, we do respect that as an industry. We greatly respect the environment. So I think it's our overall unified vision that we maybe all don't talk about, but we all follow a set path about environmental responsibility, society responsibility. That makes us pretty strong and lets us get around, as well as using data properly.
Good stuff, Phil. Thank you. Audrey, you're unmuted. I'll ask you.
Yeah, I definitely, we've had many opportunities to prove that we are resilient in the Canadian energy industry. I think, we've just a couple. And, I think, Phil's right on a lot of that up front. I think people in Canada and the companies in Canada have learned to adapt to multiple different, conditions in, whether that be pricing, whether that be regulatory, whether that be environmental. I think that there is, a lot of focus on potential technologies and different opportunities to increase sustainability in our environment, to, make sure we're investing in the right types of projects long term. And I think, the other thing about the Canadian industry is we have a lot of data, and we've been talking about data already, but it's great that that data is made public to everybody else. So I think that as an industry, you know, as opposed to a different location, say the United States or Argentina, where that data is much, you know, held much closer to the chest, I think as an industry, we're able to adapt to varying situations, learn from other operators, and then, you know, make those changes that we need to make for each operator. And I think that's really important. And the other thing is that our industry, you know, in the Western Canadian Sedimentary Basin, we've got a lot of diversity. There's a lot of different projects you can choose from. There's a lot of options in terms of where you drill, what you do, what completion you do, you know. And so I think that there's been, you know, that change through time, and companies having that ability to adapt and be resilient, which is fantastic.
Great. Ray, what makes us strong?
I think I don't have much to add to what Audrey and Phil had already commented on there. You know, the one thing thinking about it that makes us strong is that we've really been in an uphill battle here for 5 years, whereas I don't think that's the same for all the jurisdictions. We've got a federal government that's, you know, pretty opposed to what we're doing right now, I would say, from a general perspective. And I think, you know, we've been pushing ahead through this. We've had, you know, countless lobbies against the industry, against pipelines. And I think, you know, the strong will survive. And I mean, I think we are still here because we are strong. And, you know, it doesn't go without saying all the data and the variation in plays that we're chasing. But I think that's kind of what gives us a bit of an advantage right now over a lot of other jurisdictions is, you know, we've been having to put up with this or deal with this, refine how we do business, have a greater focus on ESG than a lot of other oil and gas jurisdictions. And I think that puts us ahead of the curve.
So Ray, I want to ask you in particular a follow-up question on that. It's a question that we had here, and I think it is relative to Canadian operations. The question is, how adept are you at living within cash flow? Has this been a practice for years, or is this new to your organization? And how does this impact your operations going forward?
Obviously, our cash flow is quite a bit lower now than we would have anticipated about a year ago. But we were in rapid growth mode. So we in the last 18 months we grew from about 1,000 barrels a day to 10,000 barrels a day. Our plan was to definitely start living within cash flow, sort of, you know, right away here as well. The difference is that our cash flow has shrunk as pretty much every operator's has. So, you know, although we have not been living within cash flow up to this point, that was sort of the business model was, you know, ramp up production, get to a more meaningful size, get to a size where you get some economies of scale. So we're quite comfortable living in cash flow at this point. Production at current levels will be, you know, pretty flat, I would say, from a production perspective. There won't really be any decline. Just again, the nature of these big modules.
Okay, anyone else? Audrey, Phil, want to weigh in on that? Living within the dreaded cash flow.
Well,
I mean, I think. Oh,
go ahead, Audrey.
Okay, I will say something small. I think, you know, Petronas has a slightly different approach than potentially some other local operators. We've got the advantage that, you know, we're backed by the very global operator. And I think looking at that largely, they take a very long-term approach on things. And so absolutely, you know, living within cash flow is, I think, everybody's dream, and that's what we need to do. I think that, you know, this environment, like Ray said, is challenging. Our cash flow is lower than people anticipated it would be in 2020. I think there's a lot of things that happened in 2020 that nobody predicted. But I think it's a real, one of the things that's great about Petronas is that they take that long-term view of, you know, they know what their project looks like, they know what they want it to look like, and they know that, you know, there's going to be changes in environment and changes in commodity pricing throughout that. And, you know, you don't want to do sudden knee-jerk reactions to try to chase cash flow if that's not, you know, if that's not going to work out that year. So I think stay the course, basically.
Well, and Phil, speaking of, you know, long-term operations, I mean, offshore in Atlantic Canada, those are hugely capital intensive. So how would you respond to the question about living within cash flow?
Well, certainly no different. We're a large company. We've got large cash flow, so we will trim to meet cash flow projects. And part of the beauty of it is this is not a single operator. This is all of us. So all of us in the offshore world in Western Canada, we all have to evolve. We all can't keep pouring money out in a time when there is none coming in. So it's not as large a hurdle in this moment in history than it might be at other times to just say, look, let's all agree that, this is our new top 10 list from our top 40 list. We focus on that and move to within that. Suncor is definitely striving to live within its cash flow. But, there are things that have to be done, as Audrey points out, and a long-term view, large company, big vision, big lifespan ahead of it. We do the things that must be done, and we evolve the things that could be delayed to a better period of time.
So the original question I had asked in that round of questioning is what makes us strong as a Canadian industry, and I wanted my friend Alberto to have a chance to respond to that as well.
Yeah, because I don't not much about cash flow that I can say, I guess. But
see how I dodged back off of that for you?
Yeah. But I can probably tie both answers in by saying that we're mindful, right? Every time we're designing diagnostics for E&Ps operators, we're definitely mindful of the limitations that they're having, right, in terms of spending that money. So that ties into what we have seen for the last few years, at least in the Canadian industries, that clients, right, operators are making sure that objectives are being covered with those designs, right? We don't just go there and discuss about, let's just apply this technology or this product or this service and see you later and send me the report. It's all about what is it you want to accomplish, right, with these diagnostics? Is it an evaluation of flow profiling? Is it just flow assurance? Is it an evaluation of the interwellbore interaction, spacing? What is it, right? And then that discipline approach, right, around making sure that the value of that investment is achieved. I think the fact that we've been doing it for a long time, I think it's just going to stay there and just make us stronger as an industry, right?
Okay, good answer. Good stuff. So let's do a few more poll questions, guys. This is going so fantastic. I've gotten through about like a third of the questions that I had originally hoped for. The conversation is just going so great. So question, when do you expect oil prices, WTI, will rebound to stable $50 a barrel?
I think we've got the crystal ball.
Yeah, obviously next month, right? Okay, so everybody just throw out your best guess, and then we'll see what our panelists think about this as well. And then, I think we should do a couple more poll questions back to back. They're pretty fun, pretty interesting. So everyone answer there and respond as you can, and it'll take a minute to get those answers back. So I'm going to ask another Canadian specific question. Is pipeline capacity still an issue for you folks? Is there anything that can be done to our Canadian energy industry to make us more competitive and attractive to other markets? And maybe I'll ask Ray, first of all, what do you think of that? I know that you speak to investors frequently, so.
Yeah, again, we're not the big demand on the pipeline systems at 10,000 barrels a day as maybe Suncor might be, but I think pipelines that are lacking will give us the, better diversification into different markets. And I think, going forward, we need to be able to get products to the best market, not just any market that we possibly can, because that's the last place we can cram a barrel of oil. So I don't know from a physical perspective where we're actually constrained as much as I think from a economics and best practices, we certainly want to have options and to flow oil in different directions.
Okay. Audrey, any thoughts on that? How is Petronas responding to pipeline capacity restraints?
I think, as I mentioned, with the long-term plan, we've been thinking about pipelines for many, many years. And so we just make sure that, we've basically got plans in place as much as we can on the pipelines that we need. We're very focused on diversifying sales points, and we've got the challenge of being in Northeast BC. We're on the very, very edge. So if there's going to be constraint and a price issue, it's going to be up in our wells. So that has been a focus of our company for several years. And we believe that diversification of sales points and ability to bring your product to several different pipes really allows that flexibility. So I think that hasn't changed in this market for us.
Great. Phil, any thoughts?
Well, I think right now, this unprecedented period of time we're in with OPEC Plus wielding a hammer like we've never seen before makes pipeline capacity sort of a different problem. If we had twice the pipeline capacity, would OPEC Plus be twice as aggressive to maintain their market share? We've got a problem where, the expansion in this current environment is slowing down. How much pipeline capacity will we need as we come out of this period of time with the different consumption ratios? That's where I see a bigger risk right now. It'd be all well and good. We get more pipeline pace. We're all running to warm water ports, and OPEC says, great, you just took 1% of our Asia market. Yep, price is going to go down to $5. There's a different set of dynamics than just capacity in play today. That's what demand is the key. And for me, it's about patience. Where is it going to grow? How is it going to grow? And then worry about what pipeline space we've got, given that, North America is not got the hammer in this. So.
Okay. Derek, you got the results from the poll? All right. I'll take that. Nobody thinks next month. Out of the 60 people on the call, nobody knows that it's going to happen by next month. But mid 2021, I think I'll take it. I think that's cautiously optimistic, but I like that answer. So, Derek, I'm going to ask you to get the next poll question ready, the one that's related specifically to Canada. Is that all right?
Yep, coming your way. 1 second.
Perfect.
There you go.
Okay, so here's another one. So from the current downturn, Canada's oil and gas industry will more likely resurge stronger due to, and we talked about some of this already, but our ability to innovate, our ability to adapt quickly to changing conditions, the diversity of our energy offer, a renewed interest from investors, or an overall industry rebound worldwide. So let's everyone take a shot at that. And in the meantime, I'll ask another question here. So this is a question that came a lot from a lot of registrants, and it's a question that we came up with as well, because it's another unique factor about Canada relative to the United States. Completions in the US are almost 100% exclusively plug and perf. And there are some different features of Canada that allow us to maybe make some different decisions, both in terms of ball drop and annular fracs or sliding sleeves. And so the question is, what completion style do you prefer, and how do you high grade that decision as an organization? And I'm going to ask Ray, because we've talked about this before, and I'm interested, and you can speak to maybe what Kickinghorse's strategy is, because it's a little unique for the Montney, I would say. So yeah, interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so we use an annular fracking system, sliding sleeves. We've used that, I guess, probably for about 8 years, dating back to our last company. Really the thought with the sliding sleeves is we wanted to avoid on any of the other systems having individual fracs take way higher percentage than what you want into an individual perf, or in a ball drop system into a specific, open hole outside part of the lateral where the fracs may want to grow, as opposed to with the pinpoint placement from the annular frac or the sliding sleeves. So sleeves are cemented in place. So again, real similar to a plug and perf. I think we've seen a lot of operators in the nearby area, at least, where they used to have, say, 5 perf clusters per stage, go down to about 2. And again, that's all, in our opinion, what we've been accomplishing with the sliding sleeve or the pinpoint placement all along. I guess on top of that, pretty much all wells that we've been drilling to date have been land earning, land retention, exploration. We're not in true development mode yet, so we're delineating the property. And from a one-off perspective, I think the sliding sleeves is really difficult to beat. Back to sort of the innovation and focus that Phil has mentioned on capital costs as we go to more pad development. We continue to keep an open mind onto any other completion technologies out there that maybe give us a cost advantage and overall profitability advantage. But for now, we're happy with the annular fracking.
Okay, Audrey, any thoughts there? Lots, I'm sure.
I could go on for hours about that. No, we've got, our company has lots of experience with not all, but many different completions types. We've done the open hole bell drop, we've done the cemented sleeve. We are currently focused more on plug and perf, and I think Ray touched on some of the things. I think one of them being that we are now in development. We're drilling 8 well pads. And so we want, that is a technology, plug and perf, where optimization. There are many opportunities for optimization. It can be very, very efficient. And in terms of completing multi-well pads, that's one of the methodologies that we like to use. That being said, I don't think we've ruled out other technologies as potential. We're just keeping up with the industry and understanding sort of what works for us at this time. I do think cluster efficiency is very important. I think being able to monitor, and that's something that we're focusing as a company on, surveillance techniques to understand our cluster efficiency and different techniques to try to optimize it within a plug and perf kind of environment. So I think definitely very important points.
I just wanted to ask here as a follow-up question to that, and I thought this was very interesting. This came in through the registration. It said, do different completion types, plug and perf, ball drop, sliding sleeve, have different effects on parent-child interactions, all else being equal? Are some methods better for near wellbore frac complexity, while others are better for increased effective half length, but may cause increased frac hits at adjacent wells? Does this suggest that different methods require different interwell spacing?
I think, I can't speak for my company on this, but in my opinion, yes, I think that, varying frac designs and completion designs will have varying effects on what type of frac you make and what that parent-child interaction is. And I mean, I think intuitively in my past life, a lot of thoughts on single point fracs creating potentially more planar versus multiple entry points. Now, can that be proven? Potentially not. I think frac hits are a big issue throughout the industry, and regardless of what type of completion technology you have, I think a lot of it depends on the rock, the geomechanics, the stress environment. You're going to get that kind of issue regardless, right?
Anyone else want to weigh in on that, different completion types and their effect on parent-child well relationships?
Well, for me, anytime we have a single point, you are running the risk of a connection parent-child far greater than you are if you have a distributed set of points. That's not to say, you got 3 clusters, 2 of them pack off, well, you get the same problem. So I can see the clusters allowing a better network generation, as Audrey was pointing out, versus a single point giving you a very large planar area of lots of length, potentially well packed, so you take away some flow convergence issues, and a decent production rate. So But as you pump the job and you get longer and longer, then yes, you got the parent-child hit is a real possibility. So the next question to that would be, is that really a problem? Other than the moment of the hit, is that really a problem to get a parent-child hit?
Yeah, it's that's how, you know, the first answer was that it's, you know, we could be half an hour here talking about each one of the different strategies, right? And they will all have pros, cons, how about this, how about that, right?
Let me ask just real quickly, Alberto, just to press pause. When you were in Canada, what was, at that time, so that was about 5 years ago, what was the preferred completion type then?
Well, lots have changed ever since, right? Ever since, I guess maybe the biggest difference when it comes to what's being done today is the whole concept about extreme limit entry, for example, right? And cluster efficiency. Back then, we were trying all the way from open hole to the plug and perf. However, plug and perf, the number of perforations we would be adding to for a stage, you know, compared to what it's being done today, it was, you know, a number of fold times, right? And we were happy with saying, well, 50%, 70% of the perforations are taken, right? That has evolved completely to what it is today. In any case, I think there's two main big objectives from where to start that design or that approach. One of them being is you gotta know the reservoir. You gotta know, are you in an overpressure section of the reservoir? What's the fabric of it, right? Is it gonna be more of a planar or more of a network like distribution of the conductivity you're pumping, right? And then the other one is totally just the business driver, right? Because it's not the same if you're building a company to get bought next year, or if you're actually trying to develop, you know, EOR, right? So all those factors need to be taken into account, and once you find a groove, then you just try to get the best at it, right? Like, you know, Kickinghorse. Raymond says, you know, we've been doing this for 8 years, and we're good at this, right? So you find that sandbox where you're good at what you're doing, and just keep improving, right? And that's how you make good business of it.
Good stuff. Okay, Derek, I think has the results from poll number 3. So again, pretty evenly distributed answers, but yeah, that's the one I voted for. I think an overall industry rebound worldwide, a rising tide is going to lift all boats. But I do think there are some unique aspects of the Canadian oil and gas industry, and I think our ability to adapt quickly to changing conditions would have been my second answer. So that's excellent. Now I'm going to ask Derek to post poll number 4 here for us, because it's very relative to what we're talking about. So the question is, the most challenging completion questions your organization will ask in the next 12 months will be related to cluster efficiency, frac-driven interactions, parent-child well relationships, well spacing or stacking, or optimum lateral lengths. So let's everyone take a moment and weigh in on that. And next question I'm going to ask is something that we discuss a lot. Do you think it is better or important to target your completions based on certain lithology or petrophysical properties, or just to complete geometrically? And maybe I'll ask Ray's thinking. I can tell. I can see his thought process going there. So I'll see what Ray's got to say.
I think that's going to be dependent company to company. That's my opinion. Certain places, certainly you're going to need to target the better lithologies, whereas other ones you've got just more crap throughout the whole rock, and it doesn't matter where you are. There's no sweet spot necessarily. I think it's going to go, you know, it perfectly ties into that last poll that you just put on, though, in terms of, you know, well spacing, stacks, what benches do you target, those sorts of things. So I guess the answer is both or neither, depending on the case.
Okay. Phil, any thoughts?
Well, right now, if we take the next go forward basis, I think it's going to be more about getting your highest paying results. So better productivity, if that happens to be pay driven or reservoir driven, then that's where I would be targeting, simply because you just need the income. Certainly as you step out and get more of your infrastructure built, your add-on costs become less significant, and then you can target the lower quality pays in the system. You may even want to look at a blended, you know, high quality, low quality, to give you the right production rate, so you don't skip over poor pay, but you're going to have to make money first. So that's going to be lithology driven, pay driven.
Okay. Audrey.
Yeah, I interpret this question as, you know, a question about engineered completions and talking about, you know, throughout your lateral, whether that mattered or to complete geometrically. And I think that's a question that's kind of been bouncing around the industry for several years in terms of, you know, theoretically, if you think about it, you know, your petrophysics and your lithology, it should make a difference. I'm sure it makes a difference. You know, it makes a difference where you land your wells. I think landing zone, I believe makes a difference. Geosteering, making sure you're in that landing zone makes a difference. However, I'm just not sure the industry, you know, with the surveillance activity that we have and the ability to measure production across your lateral, I know there's multiple technologies that can help us with that indication. However, I'm personally don't believe we're smart enough to pick and choose the fracks that we frack along a lateral. But I do agree that it would be completely reservoir dependent, right? And so if there was a lateral that, you know, there is a location of higher water saturation or something that you would absolutely not want to complete, I agree with that. So it would be reservoir dependent.
Alberto, do you want to weigh in on some of what maybe data sets that we've seen recently?
Yeah, and I guess the short answer is we have seen a difference, right? When it comes to evaluating flow profiling in a wellbore, very often is evident that some of the rock properties correlates directly with better regions of the wellbore in terms of production, right? I wouldn't even limit it to lithology and petrophysical. Very often also has to do with if there was a section of the wellbore being influenced by a parent well, right? Probably overlapping, say, half of the lateral length. Then we get to see how that impacts production as well. So yeah, it's I guess the next question really is, and Audrey talked about this, is how do you make that knowledge now influence your decision about, are you going to pump a bigger frac? Are you going to pump a smaller frac? Are you going to just forgo the whole section, right? It's a well that's already been drilled. So you might as well put some stimulation there, right? We've been with companies, working with companies that he can choose what stages to frac or not to frac based on, you know, some of this data, right? And but not long ago, we hear about, well, maybe rather than choosing to not to stimulate the good areas, maybe we should place the fracs in the good areas, because now we're going to get more hydrocarbon back, right? So you know, is it influential? Definitely. How are you going to make it work for you is the next question.
Good stuff.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that, Alberto. Like, I think that, you know, people have seen that makes a difference. It's just that, what is the solution to that? Do you change the type of frac you make? Are the results consistent depending on what your reservoir looks like, what your layer looks like, you know, what your completion methodology is? You've got, you know, every combination and permutation of solution to a problem that you have every combination and permutation of why that problem's happening, right? So I think it's a really interesting issue. And I think, you know, the industry is getting smarter to try to map those things out and be able to react to that. But it's something to sort of watch, I think.
So Derek, can we put up the results for poll number 4 and maybe get number 5 ready as well? So the most challenging completion question, well spacing and stacking. Interesting. Any of our panelists want to weigh in on what they voted for, or what their thoughts are on well spacing and stacking, or whichever results? Anyone want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, that's the answer I chose, is well spacing, stacking. I think, as Phil said, you're going to, you know, quite often now people are experiencing, or companies are experiencing, parent-child interaction. How damaging is it? Do you take a short hit or not? But again, the magnitude of the interaction between the wells often comes down to how the wells are spaced. And again, the frac size, of course, dependent as well. But you know, ultimately, if you've got an area of land and you want the best profitability from it, you need to understand overall recovery from a well, on a well basis. And to do that, you have to have a really good understanding of how many benches and what the well spacing is, or what the well stacking and how many and what the spacing is. So I think that's probably the most difficult question to answer in a lot of cases, because it's tough to model it. I know we've done a pretty extensive modeling from the reservoir side of things, and it all, I think, on a reservoir by reservoir basis, there's going to be different answers. So as much as I think we've talked about peering over the fence and collaborating, I think there will be gains to be made, but I think it's going to become very specific, area by area.
Anyone else? The floor is wide open.
Well, so ironically, believe it or not, in the offshore, we have a stacking challenge. As the offshore environment heads to the same level of maturity as the Western Canada Basin, the Darcy Rock is starting to disappear, which is a real shame, because very few of us get to play in Darcy Rock, and it's amazing. We're going into, we're going to poor pay, guys. We're going down to tens of millidarcies. So it's really crappy. But then you wind up with, given that it's a fault block driven system, now your pool size is dropping down. So now we're trying to look through the logic and how do we put injector and producer stacked through a fault block that we don't have premature water injection breakthrough through whatever mechanisms into the producer. So stacking, ironically, and whatever failure path we might have, whether you call it a fracture out of the injector, or potentially even have to frack the producer to get good vertical communication, how do you ultimately set those up properly so you don't water out your producer? So that will be the next challenge, is how close is too close, how far away is too far away within a fault block. So.
Anyone else? Not everybody has to respond at all, but anyone else want to weigh in on that? Audrey?
Sorry, I heard children yelling my name.
Yeah,
I apologies.
By all means, like you can go.
No, it's all good. I don't know whose child it was, because it wasn't mine, but I heard my name.
Yeah. Well, maybe just to comment that the results of the poll there, yeah, that kind of goes along what we've seen lately, right? In the last few months, how well spacing is part of what one of the main objectives of what our partners want to figure out. What's, what knobs to move, to adjust, because at the end of the day, it's a combination, right? It's spacing. Your decisions on spacing go along the decisions on the frac size, right? If you go back to that poll, you also see how the length of the lateral seems to be, what doesn't seem to be an important topic nowadays, the optimal lateral length. However, if you were to ask that question 2 or 3 years ago, that one might have been tops. So that's where we are today.
I just want to check in. Audrey, are you there? Are you with us? I worry we lost connection to Audrey there, which happens. So perhaps she will log out, and I'm sure she'll log back in a moment. So we've got about 9 minutes left. I think we're going to be able to probably get through one more poll question and then one more regular question. So Derek, if you want to maybe let's put up poll number 5. We'll let everybody respond to it. I'll ask another question in the meantime, and then we can come back to the poll. So for everyone on the chat right now, all of the operators on the chat, on the live feed, just interested in preferred completion strategy. And in the meantime, I thought this was a very interesting question. And it actually came from someone at Petronas. And it's quite simply, in your opinion, what would you say is the most groundbreaking innovation in completions optimization that has helped maximize production in shale and tight plays over the past decade? Again, the most groundbreaking innovation in completions optimization that has helped maximize production in shale and tight plays over the past decade. Any thoughts, Phil?
Oh, I was going to punt that one to Ray.
I think the biggest game changer, I don't know if it's as much of an innovation, but it's just the number of stages. 10 years ago, it was maybe 8 stages on a mile-long lateral was deemed enough for, whether they be perforations or open holes, like ball drop systems. But, from a mile-long lateral with 8 stages to lots of places in the States now down to 10 to 15 foot between perf clusters. To me, that's probably call that innovation. It's not necessarily a technology you would think of, but it's certainly the game changer, I think, that's allowed so many of these unconventional plays to start to become economical.
Yeah, and that's, Bruce Meyer a number of years ago produced a paper that said, what was our spacing supposed to be? 83 feet, and we all just about laughed right out of the room. And now we're a lot less than that. Bruce has got to be killing himself laughing. So, I mean, it's just, this is such a unique rock that all of our conventional wisdom, all of our gut instinct, pretty much gone. You just got to keep pumping the jobs to find the right answer. So that is the innovation, is more treatments. Who would have thought you could put that many treatments in, turn around sometime later and do it all over again? That's just mind-blowing. So,
Alberto, any thoughts?
I have to say it's tracers.
Yeah.
No,
that was not a loaded question.
Yeah.
I did not expect him to say that.
No, it's well, but I would like to talk about diagnostics altogether, right? It's all the developments that definitely include tracers, include all the way to fiber optics, cameras. It's just that there's been so much technology developments on that end that has evolved and has allowed, right, has enabled the understanding on we need more frac intensity, right? We're better off in this section of the reservoir because let's be clear, whereas in conventional, normally that pay zone is reduced to a number of feet or a number of meters. Unconventional, you're talking big packs, and it's through diagnostics that lots of the understanding on where to better place the wellbore, for example, we've learned where's the better location, right? Or frac wise, right? sometimes is the flavor of the year, maybe the length, then maybe cluster efficiency, right? Then maybe the fluid you're fracking with. If you wouldn't have the proper diagnostic technology or combination of them, it'll be harder to learn just from measuring production at the wellhead, right? So being able to look at each stage or different regions within the wellbore, that has accelerated that learning, for sure.
Great. Thanks, man. And in case anyone is worried about Audrey, she's okay. There's a storm going on. Actually, Audrey called in from her vacation. She's in Invermere right now. There's a big storm going on. She says her internet just crashed and she's trying to log in. I've asked her to at least call in. I hope we'll get a chance at least to say goodbye. She was fantastic today, as all the panelists were. So wrapping up, we'll take a look at the poll results and then, oh, here she is.
Oh my goodness.
Audrey!
Sorry about that, guys. Just as
That's
I was trying to talk, there was lightning and thunder, and that's why I heard people screaming my names as they were all mountain biking and they were stuck in the rain.
That's okay.
So,
I'm glad you're back. So, Audrey, the last question we just asked, it actually came from someone at Petronas, and I want to be mindful of the time here. But the question is the most groundbreaking innovation in completions optimization, we'll say over the past decade. So the most groundbreaking innovation in completion optimization. So we had some, Ray, both Ray and Phil really talked about the number of stages per well has been the biggest fundamental change. Alberto said tracers, of course, right? Alberto talked about diagnostics anyway as being key. So wonder what your thoughts would be on that.
oh, that is like a pretty intense question from somebody at Petronas. So I think, lateral lengths, though it's not completion technology, I think that's made a massive game changer in our industry in terms of being able to produce a lot of hydrocarbon from one wellbore. And I think to echo the number of stages and understanding sort of what that frac sand actually does for you. And I think at the beginning of the shale industry, I'd say, 10 years ago in Horn River, I was working Horn River, and we were all about the water, and we just pumped as much water as you could possibly pump. And I think, Alberto, you probably have some maybe potentially experience on the Encana side there. We didn't think sand did anything at all. And also, we had multiple clusters, in the plug and perf kind of scene, and we knew we were frac hits, we knew we had parent-child, we knew all those things existed, but we didn't know how to put them all together and optimize them. And I think the industry's come a long way to understand that. And it's pretty exciting because I think we still have so much to learn. And we now have sort of some of those surveillance technologies that tell us things that we couldn't see before too as well. So I think it's pretty exciting.
Man, ask an intense question, get an intense answer. That was pretty good, Audrey, for someone who just dialed back in.
I'm on my personal hotspot from my phone, so if I die, that's why.
That's great. Okay, guys. Well, I'm sad to say we've only got 1 minute left. We want to be mindful of the time, so it's 3:30. Derek, can we just see the last results of the last poll? Oh, interesting. Cemented plug and perf and unplug and perf seems to be dominating in Canada as well, it would seem. With really, no one answered open hole ball drop. That's interesting. Huh. That's that is very interesting. So the good news is, guys, we have lots of questions left over. We've got lots of questions that we didn't get a chance to ask. So I think that means we might have to do another one of these sometime. This was very enjoyable, and I really want to thank Ray and Phil and Audrey in particular for dialing in from her vacation to be a part of this, and Alberto. And the other thing I want you guys to know is that this was not just a Team Canada effort. All of these questions, all of this, putting this all together was a huge ProTechnics initiative. And I want to thank all my friends and all my guys down in Houston and Derek for being my wingman today, Buddy and Dick and everyone else on the team to help put all these questions together. Really, the key to doing these ProTech Talks we've learned is get the right panelists and ask really, really good questions. And I think we've done that today. So that's it. Thank you so much, everyone who dialed in today to join us. And we'll we look forward to following up with all of you at some point in the near future. So
Thanks a lot.
Thanks very
Kevin.
much.
Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks. All right. Oh no.
We didn't invite you.
Who do you have there, Kevin?
It's Jimi Hendrix, man.
Oh, there you go. That's
Oh,
cool.
hilarious. All right. See you
All
guys
right, that was
later.
excellent. Thank you so much, Audrey.
Thank you, Audrey.
Sorry about that. Kevin really apologized for losing signal.
Oh, no, you're fine. I'm just glad everything's okay. And yeah, excellent job today for everyone.
Yeah, you guys did great.
This was
Awesome.
a pleasure. Yeah, thank you so
Okay.
much.
Bye.
Thank you, Audrey.
Yeah.